Ah, yes.
It's that time again.
It is, man.
Yes.
What's going on?
I'm a bachelor for the past nearly 24 hours. My wife has gone to Las Vegas to visit her sisters. And, yeah. It's always good to get me in bachelor mode, I think, Bran.
Oh,
let's
definitely.
see what direction. Yeah, let's see what direction this goes this evening. So, we got a bunch of listener questions. You've thrown out some questions, but I wanted to start talking about winter.
Oh, okay. Wait, before we do that, you sent me a package.
Oh, do we need to do this unboxing? Let's do this unboxing, I guess. Fair enough.
I couldn't wait. I already unboxed it.
Very cool.
And I already put it in the DVD player.
Ooh.
But I don't know. I got to get a different DVD player because my DVD player won't stop with this. I never seen this feature before, descriptive audio.
Oh.
And so I tried to switch it to like every other subtitle for that film. There's like we're talking about Son of Saul.
Yeah.
In case anyone was wondering, but I was like so excited to play it, and so I'm playing it, and I'm like, I tried every option. There's like every subtitle possible, and there's just a lot to pick from it. But the descriptive audio is like, there's like it opens. There's this kid like scrubbing a floor, and then it's like, so I wanted to shoot this scene.
That's the director's commentary. Now,
yeah.
I've got to correct you here.
Okay.
These things are very important with my day-to-day work. Director's commentary, I can't actually talk too much about director's commentary, but let's just say director's commentary is descriptive audio is a different feature. Descriptive audio is where every minutiae is given with a voiceover. And actually, I rarely give big ups to Netflix in this podcast, but I've got to say, we have some amazing descriptive audio. So for folks that have Netflix, if you see our Marvel cartoon series in particular, the live action Marvel series, if you turn on descriptive audio, you will hear some of the funniest descriptive audio that exists on this planet. Little hack there for Netflix.
Well, in the beginning, like the credits are coming up, and it is doing descriptive audio.
Yeah.
And it's like oval with oak leaf in the middle, and like it's doing that, and then it went into the thing, and I was like, well, I don't know. It's like in the very beginning, it started doing descriptive audio. Maybe I switched something, and then it went to director's commentary. But I'm trying everything, so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw it in a different DVD player and try it out because I didn't want to ruin anything. I wanted to go.
It would be it would be rather ruined with director's commentary, I think, in this circumstance.
But thank you, because I needed something to watch. So this is going to be awesome.
Yes. Well, hopefully you'll see it in the unmolested version. It's very audio minimal. I mean, basically you need subtitles for a little bit of it. You could almost watch it without audio, I think. No, maybe not. There's a lot of yelling and pushing and stuff like that. But really, it's one of the most minimal language films I've seen in a long time. But the little bits of language are important, and yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah, I'll let you work it out.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Returning to winter.
Yes, winter the season?
Winter the season.
Oh.
I mean, you talk so passionately about it. I just want to get a greater understanding of your love of winter.
I've been lazy with winter the past 2 winters. Every time... I don't know. I love winter, man, because it's that chance you could get off school. Even though I haven't been in school forever, I still am like cheering for the people that are in school. I'm like, come on, blizzard. Let there be wipeouts everywhere. I was like, close the school. But yeah, of course I love winter because you know what? Let me say this. If you live in like an area where you can handle the snow, then it's not as fun. Like I have a friend that lives in Massachusetts, and everyone can deal with like 3 feet of snow. But we live in this perfect little spot where we get snow, but people really can't deal with it. And people still try to like go out and deal with it. And like, as soon as they forecast snow, eggs, bread, and milk are gone. Like you're not going to be able to get out to the store for weeks, months. It's every single time. It's crazy. And then, so it's like this awesome panic, and it's so fun to watch. And And the more snow that comes, the worse it gets for people. And it's like, it's like this mini apocalypse around here when it snows. So that makes it exciting too, because there's really nothing to worry about. I think a couple of years back, there was we had lost power for like a week. And we were one of the last to get it on in like the area. But even then, I'm like, oh, like it's that bad, But I love the snow. And if you're like going out and filming and taking pictures and stuff, it's just a whole nother free background that you don't usually get, I love like the whole winter attire. I've never skied in my life. I can ice skate, but I've never skied ever. I snowboarded once. I just would rather go down the hill on an inner tube. And, I got cross country skis. So those are awesome, but regular skis, I never did it. But yeah, I love it.
It's funny, those things that cause places to like completely lose their shit. I mean, in Vegas and even here, rain has that effect. In Vegas,
oh really?
In Vegas, they have warnings about rain. Now, I have been in one Vegas flash flood situation. My wife and I were driving in an old sedan that she'd had for years, and we were in a strange part of Vegas on Martin Luther King Boulevard, and they put out these alerts on the radio associated with flash flood rains. And I've never seen a flash flood rain. I mean, I've been in Australia, we have wall of water rains. And I've been camping and hiking through wall of water situations where you're just literally drenched to the bone. Like there's no air in between the rain. It's just like solid water. But in Vegas, it was just because they never really got the sewer systems right and things like that. Like the grey water and, rainwater, they never really worked it out. So you could get occasionally stuck in these flash flood situations. But here, for probably the past 5 years, it just hasn't rained. It rained properly this last season. But our rainy season is opposite to your rainy season. Like your rainy season is basically through the summer, right?
Yeah, it is now. This summer it's been like monsoon galore, But I guess we get a lot too, like hurricane season. End of August and into September.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of our rains are in probably December through to February, if we get any. And really, when I used to live here in 2000, it rained all the time. It was very similar. Where I'm from in Australia, Canberra, grey like 8 months of the year. I mean, it's funny because it would snow if there was actual rain, and it does probably once every decade snow in Canberra. But just very grey and very cold. And it was like that here when I was here in 2000. Then I came back, 6 odd years ago, and it was in, no rain, emergency kind of drought stuff. And we had reasonable rains last year, but still, yeah. It's funny when it rains here because no one can drive in the rain. As you say, not quite an extreme of like bread and eggs and milk and stuff, but people just aren't used to it.
It's so funny. Like, winter without snow to me sucks, and rain in winter kind of sucks too. Well, totally does. And so we're like on a line where like an hour, not even an hour, like a half hour north of us, 40 minutes north of us, gets a considerably more snow, but they probably can even deal with it better. So like right where we're at is really nice. But yeah, it is nice to see the panic. Yeah. It's hysterical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we get into the listener things, another thing I wanted to talk about is the tornadoes. So I've listened to the tornadoes this week, and I really like it, actually. It's like fascinating music. I mean, iTunes has a copyright date on it that's rather curious, but then I hit up Wikipedia, and I just thought a lot of this music is probably stuff that your daughter likes as well, right?
What, the tornadoes?
Yeah. Does she listen to the tornadoes with you?
Yeah, well, she'll hear anything I'm playing, yeah. I don't know if she likes that. She hears a lot of Tom Petty. That's for sure. But yeah, she has heard that, but right now she's, no, I don't know if she likes it. It's hard to tell. She definitely likes playing music. Like she's got a little piano thing, a little guitar thing, and she's discovered dancing. So yeah. Dancing's important in the house, so.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, listening to Richie Valens again is another. I mean, you mentioned that, and I played some of his back catalogue. I was thinking about the quality of the dead musician. Like a lot of these musicians, it's important where the musician dies. Now, obviously, recently, a few more musicians have added themselves to the dead list. But the quality of, like, I think of this with John Lennon in particular. Do you remember the death of John Lennon?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember my mom had the TV on and the radio on in the kitchen, and she was like sewing something, and she was telling me. But I never really, I guess we listened to the Beatles a little bit then. My brothers maybe listened to it. But, yeah. Yeah,
we were on a train going to York in the UK, actually, when he passed, and it really affected my parents. I listened to, a lot of Beatles and, like, Lennon solo stuff. But I was thinking about this with regards to Kurt Cobain as well. I must have been one of the only people of my generation that missed his death. Like, it was a period of time in my life, I don't know what was going on. I think it's through a period of time where I wrote about in my book, Field of Chaos. And I had my head in my own stuff, and I didn't even, it took me like 6 months to hear that he died. And I knew his music. I guess I wasn't part of the MTV generation. I just wasn't paying attention. And a friend of mine mentioned it. I was like, what, Kurt Cobain died? And she's like, yeah, it died 6 months ago. I was just like, oh my goodness. But the funny thing is that when you're alive through the musician's music, and then the musician passes, it's a different thing than when the musician's already dead. Like the already dead musician, talking about Robert Johnson last recording, that has a very definite meaning. Whereas a musician that you listen to and you're kind of into the music, and then, either they're killed or they pass away or, drug overdose or suicide or whatever, that's a different thing. And I think it changes the quality of the music. I was listening, the quality of Richie Valens' music is in the audio recording. Like, it sounds old.
Oh, yeah.
You can't modernize it. The actual, like, mechanisms in the recording, the microphones, the tape that was recorded onto, it has this kind of old sound. And obviously Robert Johnson is even more extreme than that in terms of just, like, mournful old music. But,
yeah, that old sound, I like it. I heard that he built, like, some of his early songs. Well, he doesn't even have that many songs, but, like, Come On, Let's Go, stuff like that. I had heard that he actually built, I don't know if he built his first electric guitar, but he had like built it and like used that on a lot of recordings. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, I like those old sounds.
Have you ever built an electric guitar? Have you ever built an instrument like that?
No, I've never built an instrument. No, I've definitely not built a guitar.
When I was a kid, I don't know how old I must have been about 13. I built an electric guitar, which was a guitar string, because I realized that it doesn't, you can build an electric guitar out of anything. It's just the vibration of the string. It doesn't need like a harmonic board like a violin or a double bass or anything like that. So I got an old piece of pine, and I stretched out a string across it, and I attached a battery to it, which you can actually do. You don't need a magnetic pickup. Attached a battery, connected a wire through to the speaker from the string and the battery. And you can actually play tunes on that thing.
Really?
And it was really very strange. I took it to, at the time, I was a boy soprano, and the choirmaster was convicted of pedophilia rather splendidly. So I went to
Adelaide?
No. This is Canberra. Adelaide was like the first 18 months of my life, and then kind of Christmases and holidays since then. But no, this was in Canberra, Australia. And the fellow was convicted of pedophilia. So I immediately changed choirs to another choir. And it was just like all like hippie kids, and it was all really strange. And I took it when I had composition camp that I went to, and I took this electric guitar that I'd made, and I couldn't take it out because they were all far too cool and looked down on me with my divorced parents and my holes in my pants from a previous recording and these kind of things. So yeah, but it was great fun to make, and really easy to make actually. All you need is a string that vibrates that hits the contact area of a battery, and you wire up to a speaker, and you've got electric guitar. Now, real electric guitars, of course, rely on like the electromagnetic like vibrations of the string. You don't need contact for it, but with contact, you can actually get quite good. You can play a tune with it at least. So.
That's pretty cool.
Anyway, let's get into the list of questions. Let's start off with our listener Kenny is the only iTunes review so far left in the US, and if folks want other folks to listen in, now if you want Attic Aficionados to be our little secret, then that's fine. You don't have to leave iTunes reviews. But if you would like other folks to listen to Attic Aficionados, leave a few iTunes reviews. Well, an iTunes review each, let's just say. Kenny says he's a long-term fan of your work, Brandon, and he says this is totally different than anything you have ever done previously, in a good way. Tom is an excellent storyteller who keeps the audience engaged from beginning to end. Keep it up, guys, but I want to hear a podcast with the two of you in the same room.
Oh, well, someday in Jersey, I think, when Tom comes here.
Someday. No, I'm actually heading down to Philadelphia. So I can actually probably record considerably closer. And with these, what do they call them now? Airbnb things. You know, I could find a pad close to yours, set up a D&D night, do a recording. But no, I have business in Philadelphia, and I thought, I'll just find a Airbnb close by. We'll work it all.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that would be, we can totally do that. When are you doing that?
What is it, August next year?
Yeah, okay.
Could be sooner. You never know. I could just get sick of this whole Bay Area thing and think, screw it. Let me find a place. But, either August next year or in some hunting lodge in West Virginia in the near future. Anyway, so we should probably point out, for folks that haven't worked this out yet, to Kenny's point, I record in California and Brandon records in Pennsylvania. So there is actually quite a bit of distance between us, but it'll happen.
Could be farther. Could be Adelaide.
Could be. Yeah, that would be really funky. I was thinking that if I moved to the UK, I would have to record this thing at 3 a.m. UK time, but we've worked that out too. Anyway. Listener topics. Mike Black asks, how about Halloween? What were your Halloweens like as children? What sort of costumes did you guys wear? Kick this off, Brandon.
Ooh, I had a Gremlins costume. My mom made me a Gizmo costume for 5th grade. He had the Halloween party, in school. And so she made this enormous Gizmo costume. I mean, it was big. It was awesome. That's probably that was probably my best Halloween costume. I made one for my daughter. So when she was 1, we went trick or treating, I was like, you are going to be Gizmo. So I made it. And, by the time I made it 2 months early, and she grew in those 2 months. So those leggings were so tight getting on. I was like, come on, we just got to get a picture here. But, yeah, definitely Gizmo, and a lot of Star Wars. I think I was Darth Vader, Chewbacca, and Boba Fett for a decade.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, how about you?
So I probably should point out that Halloween in Australia is in late spring, so it's a different kind of festival. And honestly, growing up, I mean, for me, it was any opportunity to dress up. It wasn't Halloween. But by the time I got to college, actually, there were a couple of occasions. I went to a rather conservative Catholic college. I'm not a Catholic. I was put into this thing somehow. And they would have these themed nights where I just thought, I've got to come as the most offensive thing I can possibly come as. And although now, in this country in particular, I've got to say to our American listeners, this would in no way be politically correct in this country. And really, honestly, it wasn't politically correct in Australia. I was just an angry, angry youth. I came as Louis Farrakhan to one of the... they had an American night, and people were there as cowboys and all this kind of stuff. No, I came as Louis Farrakhan, bow tie and all. Yes, I was wearing the particular makeup required for that. And
American night.
Spent the whole night as Louis Farrakhan.
So what? Of all the things you could have picked.
Yeah. I was a very angry young man.
You could have been like Babe Ruth or Abe Lincoln.
No, I wanted to really, and then they had, actually and the next year they had American Night again. You thought they would have thought about it. And that year I was even more angry. And I came as diseased blankets, i.e. the things that killed, maybe it was an Indian night. I don't know. Maybe it was an American Indian night. Anyway, I came as diseased blankets that time. So, yeah.
I'm sure everybody knew what you were.
Yeah, well, after Louis Farrakhan, where no one knew, you've got to imagine country Catholicism, the evilest thing that exists in country Catholicism is Jews. Aside from that, they have no notion of, the Nation of Islam. They have no notion of any of these things. So I had to actually explain, individually in some cases, who I was, how this was an American thing. I mean, I probably could have taken a lot further, but Louis Farrakhan. Anyway, Mike Black would also like to know what both of us think of Transformers, the figures and the cartoons.
You want to start this off?
So we have a secondary follow-up question associated with Transformers. I don't know. My perspective on Transformers is there's this thing now, which is the movie franchise. Let's just put that to one side. The actual toys are really fun. And I can't escape from the fact that the toys, I never had any of the major toys. I always had the little Transformers. I had a few friends that had an Optimus Prime and this kind of stuff. The one that created the tape deck was one of my favorites as well. I have one friend that had that toy.
Oh, Soundwave.
Soundwave. But, aside from that, and the little cassettes that created other things. I mean, I would have loved to have had a Soundwave as a kid. But I think the toys are genuinely fun. I think, I'm not sure what's the resale, what's the market like for original Transformers now, Brandon?
You know what? That is not my, I don't know. I like Transformers. Like when they came out, I liked them. I've never seen the movies here. The movies that are out now.
The movies are a train wreck.
Yeah, they don't look, I don't even want to look at them. And a lot of my friends will be like, "What? You haven't seen Transformers?" Like a lot of people have seen them that aren't even in the figures and stuff, but they look hideous. But I probably had growing up, I probably had 6 Transformers. That's it. And really, I liked Soundwave, the tape guy. I mean, that was the coolest one. And the tapes that came out. And aside from that, I had a few other ones, but they were. I remember they were sort of pricey and they kind of came out after I was already into G.I. Joe and He-Man and this and that. And I said, I'd rather have those if I could pick. But their resale value, they're look at the toy cons and stuff. They're just as expensive as anything else. I mean, there's so many Transformers and there's just so many versions and so many releases. I don't even know. I have a buddy he's huge into Transformers. I don't know anything about it. And I basically am Soundwave's cool, and I'm done.
Do you own a Soundwave, and do you own any of the tapes?
Yeah, I have Soundwave, and he comes with, I think, does he come with Laserbeak? I'm pretty sure is the bird. Yeah. I always wanted Frenzy and Rumble. I believe it's Rumble and Frenzy, the two little tape guys. Yeah. Yes. What is Ravage? Yeah, that's. He'd always let the tapes go to me. Ravage, Laserbeak, attack. We would do that in school all the time, but I didn't want the dog. The dog tape. I think that's Ravage. I don't know, or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but he was cool. I liked Megatron. Megatron had such a cool voice. And I think Starscream, is that Cobra Commander?
Yep.
I think it's the same guy. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't, someone gave me an Optimus Prime. He's floating around the backyard. He's pretty beat up. And I let my daughter look at it and I was like, Optimus Prime is so stupid. I was like, don't play with that.
Have some goblins instead.
Yeah, I was like, look at these goblins. But, I don't know. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it for Transformers. I don't want to watch those movies.
The movies. Anyway, moving on from the movies.
Yeah.
Stephen Vaughan asks, the most exciting item you won on eBay. Either a steal of a deal or for sentimental reason.
Who asked this?
Stephen Vaughan.
Oh, Stephen Vaughan, you've asked a good one. Dude, this is or 2002, 2001. I was in this inbred podunk town in central Pennsylvania. And, I was in a hotel and they had a little computer room and I was watching this eBay auction and, it was for a ton of G.I. Joes. Ooh. And it was just all the good stuff from 82 to I don't know, 88, whatever. And, so I'm watching this auction and it's going to go the next morning. And I get up to watch it end and, the internet goes out. I can't refresh the page. But luckily I had the item number written down and stuff. And, so I call Rake who's at work. And I was like, dude, here's all my info. I was like, dude, you gotta log in and you gotta bid. But I was like, you gotta like wait. I was like, you can't go bidding with like a minute left. You gotta wait. Like, you see that minute? It didn't have the timer on it like it does now.
Yeah.
Like I'd always have like two computers going, you know,
of course,
and like a second hand. So I'm like, you gotta refresh it. Anyway, he puts a bid in and I get like, I don't know, it must have been like almost 200 GI Joes. And it was like right around $100. And that was good then, but it wasn't even insanely good. And now it's like, man, you buy like 50 guys, it's going to be like $200, you know, $250, something like that. Yeah, that was awesome.
There are no good deals left on eBay. That's my view now. I mean, I go on eBay periodically. The best thing I ever won, which is kind of a sad story, but I'll tell it anyway, is I bought an army that had been used at the like Warhammer headquarters. This was an Imperial Guard army. It was part of a campaign called Black Hawk Down, which was a mock version of Black Hawk Down, except with like, anyway. So that was a beautiful army. That was probably about like 50 guys and tanks and a whole bunch of modifications. And the fellow who painted it went on to work for a game studio called Climax, I think, that did a bunch of like, you know, tactical and strategy games, war games and this kind of stuff. Fascinating army. I came to this country in 2005 and basically through a series of factors, ended up in Vegas and we were just really low on funds. And I thought, well, I could put this back on eBay. I kind of felt, you know, this is a beautiful army. What am I doing here? But I was like, no, we got to survive. So I put it back on eBay. I bought it in the UK and I took it here to the US and I sold it for 4 times the price of the US. So it's kind of it's a bittersweet story because I don't know, if I'd gone a consulting gig just a little bit earlier, I probably wouldn't have sold the army. It was great to have it for a short period of time. I think that's my best eBay story.
Oh, I got a reverse eBay worst thing. When Michael Jackson died, I had on eBay my Moonwalker arcade, the PCB, the board for Moonwalker. Okay. It was already on there. Like, he was alive. It was on there. It sells. He dies like that day. And somebody bought it like earlier in the day. And I was getting a traffic ticket, so I was like pulled over, and then I heard on the radio that Michael Jackson died, and I was like, oh no! And then the prices of all those went like way up, and that was sort of a rare game. I was like, oh come on! But they only went up for like a couple months.
When I left the UK, I sold a bunch of stuff on eBay, and 2 things which were really bizarre. One was like a video cassette or something, where the woman never sent me the money and then threatened me and then found out my address and a bunch of stuff. The second one was I sold a turntable and the guy received the turntable, it was in flight case and everything. It was like a proper travel DJ turntable. And then he said 2 months after the fact, oh, it doesn't have like the top on it, the plastic top that comes down. No, it's in a flight case. I sold it as is. And then he like demanded, you know, some money back from that. But yeah, thankfully, I mean, when I first started using eBay, again, you talk about like, it must have been 2001 or 2000 actually, when I started using eBay, you'd order things and like you'd order a 2-disc set or something and they just send you a disc. I mean, it was a lot more dodgy really early on in the start of it. And thankfully they ironed out all these kinks and they worked out the reviewing things. But I remember like when eBay first came out, it was the Wild West associated with bidding on stuff and getting it. I mean, it was just horrible. Anyway. Yeah,
no, it's, hey, speaking of turntables, is it Technics or Techniques? How do you pronounce it?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. You're asking the wrong migrant question.
Well, listen, when you come here in the year 2024, I have a Technics or Eeks, turntable that, was given to me. It's like in really good condition. And yes, it has the plastic thing on top. And I have like no records, man. I have like 6 records. So you can scratch them and ruin them all up. And when you come, yeah,
very nice.
We gotta play around with that.
Yeah, definitely. I could even bring some records with me. I got plenty of records to bring. No, the original Technics are really worth owning, and I don't currently. I periodically look at them and think, is it now the time? It's one of these things where DJing was really a time in my life. When I was in the UK, in fact, I've bought a turntable here that was just so crappy. I gave it to Goodwill. It was like on Amazon. It was just like, oh, the greatest, best, latest turntable. It's so wonderful. It wasn't even weighted properly. I mean, like, very basic fundamentals of the turntable were just really, really bad. Just took it to Goodwill. Like, it was a Christmas gift to myself, and then took it to Goodwill by about February because it just wasn't working out. But no, original Technics are really beautiful turntables. And when I used to DJ in clubs, that was what was always there. I mean, it was the default kind, and they're very, very nice when you get them in their pristine condition.
Yeah, it's like barely used, and it was definitely not used for mixing. So
very nice.
Yeah,
I will abuse it in your company.
Yeah, you can. I'm using it as a rotating stand for action figures right now. So. There's no music being played on it.
Very good. Very good. Well, at least you can control the speed of the rotation, right?
Yeah, it's really smooth. I'll tell you. That's pretty nice. I actually almost gave it to the Purple Heart. It was like in a pile, and I was like, Techniques. I was like, I think that means something good. I was like,
can I just send you a check for $200 and you put that aside? And if you think you're doing that again, just send it to me. I'll send you a check for $200. Just keep it to the side.
If I'm going to get rid of it, you can just have it. And I was like, you know what? I could make my action figure spin around on this thing. I also got a ceiling fan I'm going to install.
Ooh.
And if you don't know this and you like toys and you like ceiling fans, well, listen to this. Ninja Turtles, their hands fit perfectly on the blades of most ceiling fans. Ooh. And they're snug. And you can get that sucker whizzing around. And like they got that rubber ball up where the shaft kind of hits the base of the so you put them on all the blades, and then as they fly off, it starts wobbling around, whacking the ceiling. Oh, it's awesome. Those suckers go flying, man. You got to crank it up. So I suggest not doing that. But
right. Do you attach a GoPro? Is GoPro like your camera of choice with regards to spinning? Or do you just, I mean, I've seen one of your YouTube videos, you're like flinging around a guy in a plane and then he flies out, which is a beautiful effect. Is that with a GoPro, or how do you actually film that?
That was a GoPro, yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what? I love GoPro, man. I love them. Dude, you can beat the living crap out of those things. Like, my dad knocked the GoPro off the table. It wasn't in any kind of, like, protective case or anything. It went right into the bowl of cat water for my cat. I mean, it was like a 1 in a million shot. Went in there. I just took it out, and, like, it didn't even flinch. It just keeps working. I was like, oh, yeah. I launched it off my roof without a case. Like, I stuck it on a car and put some G.I. Joes in it, just bouncing right off the thing. The thing is, like, so awesome.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Stephen Vaughn also asks, collecting non-sports cards. What are your thoughts on this, Brandon?
I don't know any non-sports cards. Is like WWF? That's still a sport, isn't it? Or is it?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
But
I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, in the UK, there's this thing which was historically called Top Trumps. You can still buy it as that brand. It's basically like numbers on the cards. Each of the cards have like stats on them. And you play it as a card game. I mean, the ones that I have are combat cards, but they're the Games Workshop branded cards from the late 80s. And they have pictures of miniatures, like finely detailed painted miniatures with like stats, like strength and what have you. So you get together with your buddies. They used to have things like submarines and race cars and stuff like that. And you'd say speed, 48 or whatever, and someone had speed of 50 and they'd win, this kind of stuff. So I've got the combat cards version. I've got them sealed away, and they're kind of fun because they've got like old miniatures painted. What other kinds of cards? I was thinking about this. I've got a few different kinds of cards that fit into this non-sports cards, but none of them are collector's cards. I mean, I never got into like Magic the Gathering or anything like that, and obviously they have their own, value. But yeah, historically I'll collect some of these things. The Trumps cards, I don't know, maybe I did buy a Trumps card somewhere. Maybe I do have like race cars somewhere.
Dude, when he said non-sports cards, and I was thinking you were going to say you had cards of like Thomas Edison and Albert Einstein.
Stat cards.
I'm sorry, Tom.
Lightning.
Speed,
yes.
I had, now that we're talking about it, I had, when the Gulf War was out, Topps put out Gulf War cards. It was so weird, and it was like, who were the commanders and generals? It was everybody. I mean, there'd be cards with planes on it, and there'd be cards with like, this general. There was like a whole set. I remember I had them all but one card I couldn't find. I was like, I'm done getting doubles. This stuff sucks. And I do have a collector set of G.I. Joe cards. It's weird. I never even opened it. It's sealed. I mean, like it's going to be worth anything. I should just open it and look at it. But yeah, that's it.
Interesting. So Stephen Vaughan also asks, first comic book ever read, and do you still have a copy of it?
You start.
So for me, Conan the Barbarian had a really strong impact on me. A kid, actually it's the same kid, this will come up with favourite animals as well. It's the same kid who I talked about last time with the Trail of Blood. He came back from California in 1983, and he had Conan the Barbarian comics. I've never seen anything so violent and grotesque. I mean, prior to that, there was probably a Spider-Man or two. The thing that I really liked was actually the ads in the comics, not the comics themselves. Like the X-ray glasses, sea monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
These dominated my childhood. Then finally I found like some scientific company in Australia that would actually send you brine shrimp. And after 6 months of just like doing research and all this bullshit, these things turned up, put them in the water. You must need a really strong magnifying glass to make those things look anything interesting. But yeah, so all that stuff. But it was mainly through the, the crazy, like, spy glasses. There were other things like you could send away and they'd send you books that would teach you about various professions. I mean, there were some crazy ads in comic books. Anyway.
Yeah, they did have awesome ads. I remember I would just go right for the ads as well.
Interesting. Like mine.
My brother had a copy. The first one I can remember reading, he had a Captain America, and he only had one. I mean, it wasn't like he bought Captain America comics, but on the cover, I was just thinking about this. I was going to look it up and try to find it. Captain America was on the cover, and it was like, wow, it was such a cool cover. He's like in a sewer. He's all beat up, his costume's torn up, and rats are like biting him. Like someone just beat him down, threw him in the sewer, and the rats are eating him, and it's like it's got rips everywhere. And I would always look at that cover, and so I read that one. But I really like there's a comic called Bloodshot. Guy's got like a circle on his chest, a red circle on his chest. I don't even think they make it, but that was a cool comic, man.
Very cool.
Yeah.
He also asked, Hot Wheels versus Matchbox versus Micro Machine.
Ooh, yeah, I saw that. I think in that order for me.
So for me, I mean, we did get Hot Wheels later, but basically Matchbox owned Australia. Matchbox also did like tiny little, in fact, I've got some painted. When my miniature painting friend was still painting miniatures, I sent him a box of Matchbox British Commandos. They have a little boat and some ladders and a bunch of little things. So Matchbox basically owned Australia. And if you were going to get cars in that size, Matchbox cars were the only size cars you were going to get. Hot Wheels came a little later, but they were a little bit too late for me. Micro Machines much, much later. But for me, Matchbox cars, I mean, the toy store that I told you about, Time Tunnel Toys, where you get all these like eclectic old toys.
Yeah.
They had a Matchbox car from Australia from 1972, and I bought that instantly, sight unseen. But yeah, it was Matchbox for me, later Hot Wheels, but really, yeah, Hot Wheels were too late. But yeah.
My dad came home one time with this box. One of the guys he worked with was, I guess his kids had grown up and they were throwing out Hot Wheels, the orange tracks. So he comes home with this box. It was enormous, and it was just tons and tons of orange track, and then like I think it's called a speed shop where like the wheel. Yes, right. So there were some of those in there, and then there was like lap counters and man, there was a bunch of stuff. And then, but it had like the starting block and the finish line. So I would race them all the time. I mean, I like the cars, but once we got that, it was like Hot Wheels here. I'm not sure if Matchbox had a metal bottom, but Hot Wheels definitely did. And they were always faster. I think just because they weighed a little more. They
do weigh more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I always went with Hot Wheels, but I had this one car in particular, and my little scumbag nephew, man, I don't know what he did with it. I went on eBay and bought it again, but it's not the original. I don't know what he did with it. I believe it's a Buick. It's black, but it's the Haley Comet anniversary car. Haley's Comet.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went on. Yeah. Yep. And so there's like 3 different versions of it. One, there's like sirens on the top of it, but this is just no sirens, just the Haley's Comet car. So I went on and bought it again, and I was like, I wonder if it'll be just as fast. And dude, it rips it up, man. It is freaking awesome. So we have the track set up in the basement, and I showed my daughter how to like start them in the block, push the button in, and they go down. And so we still race them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Very good. You mentioned that actually coming out of your attic. Is this something that came out of your attic that you then moved to the basement and set up, or has this always been set up, or is this recent?
Well, I actually got more when I was cleaning out the attic. I brought more of the parts down.
Cool.
But I had some set up. I put a bunch of turns in it, and that some of the cars, they're so fast, man. They just fly out of the turns. But yeah, it's sort of all over the house right now.
Very good. Very good. Carmine Serratelli Jr. asks, Transformers versus GoBots.
Did you have GoBots?
So GoBots, you've got to be worried when a franchise is so paper thin that it has to go by different names in different countries. In Australia, GoBots were called Machine Men. And they were really I actually quite liked them because they were more square. They were like turtles, basically. They were like square turtles and with little things that kind of popped out. They were not Transformers in any way, shape or form, but they certainly had their own form factor. And early on, like, for example, my friend who used to run the Choose Your Own Adventure, eventually D&D campaigns, he had a couple of Machine Men. And I played with them quite a bit, actually. I mean, they were kind of, when you looked at them, when they were converted into the, machine form, car, what have you, they look considerably different than the robot. Unlike some Transformers, you can kind of tell what they are, basically. Yeah,
I know.
Whereas these ones almost had, like, I have a friend that likes these strange Japanese box or Chinese box puzzles. We have this strange box and you've got to do all these tricky things and then, various secret chambers come out of them. The Machine Men, or GoBots as they were called here, were like that. Many of them actually had little tricks to get the arms and legs and various other things to come out. So they were a harder toy to master. And they actually, in that way, gave a lot more focused time trying to actually work out how to transform them into their, robot form versus their machine form. Did you have any exposure to GoBots?
Yeah, I had one GoBot, and I remember seeing GoBots in the store one time. I remember kids in school had them all of a sudden, and then I saw one in Kmart and was like, oh, GoBots. And then they were, gone after that, and then, Transformers were around. But I had the blue guy. He was a blue car. I still have him. And then somehow I traded down the road for, there was a plain guy. I think he's, gray and dark green. I think he's a GoBot. I actually, if I had to pick, I probably like GoBots better because, the Transformers, Soundwave can do it, but most of the other ones, they can't fight each other. They can't even move, heaven forbids you could, sidekick somebody or, punch the other, come on. This is so stupid, but Soundwave's good. He's got legs, he's got arms. I love him.
Certainly.
But yeah, I do like the GoBots. I don't know. They're pretty cool.
Definitely. Carmine also asks, penny races. Did you know dude. Races?
Yes. My friends had them. I didn't have them, but we would play with them. They were cool. Did you have those?
No. They seem to be like a toy. I looked them up online when Carmine asked about them. I think they just either completely missed Australia or they were just later for me. I mean, I didn't know penny races at all. You know what?
They were cool. I believe penny races, you pull them back, put the penny in them, and they go forward and do wheelies, if I remember. But I was looking for this at the last toy convention. I don't know the name of I want to say just a pull cord. And like a lot of times it would be like a motorcycle. You'd get it and you'd have this plastic, there'd be a gear somewhere and the pull cord kind of, Those, we used to have these little motorcycle guys. Man, we would pull them. Those things would take off. Oh, yeah. They were so fun. We build like ramps for them and stuff. I love those things.
I think penny racers must be, I mean, Australian currency, we did have pennies, but they were very different in size than US pennies. So that might be it, that they were made for US pennies, which is why it didn't translate to Australia. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe it is. How big are your pennies?
Larger. In fact, the copper industry does most of its exports in Australia. It's not about actually like retaining the copper within the country like the copper industry in the US is. So pennies were phased out, I don't know, sometime in the 90s, I think. We had a 2 penny, which was really big, and that was, well, it was a 2 cent. It was, so it was 1 cent and 2 cents. But both of those were phased out well before I left Australia in the mid-90s. Can't say I miss them. Anyway, Carmen also asks, what's your favourite non-guitar solo?
I had this in my head. Oh, man, you better go.
James Brown, Funky Drummer, without question. I mean, I think nothing has changed music more than James Brown, Funky Drummer. It's amazing. There are various other drum beats that have, drum solos that have made the waves. Gosh. Now you're testing me. Well, obviously, the Led Zeppelin opening drum beat to Something is used pretty heavily, and there's another one, Big Beat by, I can't think of the guy's name. Anyway, so, there are a few drum solos that have made an impact, but it has to be James Brown, Funky Drummer. Has yours come to you, Brandon?
No, but I love, I don't know how much of a solo it is, but it's really heavy on drums it's Zeppelin. It's Physical Graffiti 2. I think it's a second disc. It's In My Time of Dying is good. Yeah. There's probably a drum solo in there, but that's like my favorite drumming of Zeppelin. I don't know. No, nothing's coming to me. I had something totally.
It'll come to you. When it comes to you, stop the recording. We'll get to it. Let's move on, and if it comes up again, we'll come back to it. Ron Kleiss asks, what's the one thing that will never end up in the dumpster? If you were given the choice of one thing to keep out of all your collections, what would it be?
Raideen, Shogun Warrior.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They never go in the trash.
That's been with you for like a majority of your life, right?
Yeah, those things are like the holy grail. Yeah. They're so cool. I'm like, no way. Yeah. How about you?
I ebb and flow. It's an interesting question. I mean, I've talked about the book written soon after the Holocaust. I think in my book collection, I'd probably keep that one. I like the Fidel Castro squat. I think basically it's like a little dwarf, looking like Fidel Castro with a scar in his mouth and a machine gun on his back. I think that's probably the one that I'd keep representative.
Very, very cool.
Kenny Horn. I wonder if he's the same Kenny. He might be the same Kenny who left the, iTunes review. Kenny Horn, if this is you that left the iTunes review as well, thank you. Anyway, he wants us to... Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I just learned the Spanish word for horn, and I can't remember it. Oh, dude. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, Kenny Horn asks, he wants us to do some lists. So I created some lists. I kind of asked you through the week if you'd create some. You didn't, but you liked some of my lists by the looks of things. So I'll let you start with this one. Top 5 rappers of all time.
Oh, okay. Cool G Rap, Tupac, Dr. Dre.
Interesting.
Oh, come on. I don't want to leave anybody out. That's really good. I like Shinehead, even though he hardly has any songs. I only got one left. Who do I really like? Who am I always playing? Oh, it's so tough. I love Eazy-E. Yeah, I like Eazy-E's voice so much.
It's got to be easy.
Yeah.
Here are mine. They follow a theme, which I guess I just made it follow a theme. Ice Cube, the early Ice Cube in particular. Ice-T, basically the majority of his catalogue. Willie D, often slept on in terms of Ghetto Boys. I like Willie D. Chuck D, for obvious reasons. And finally, KRS-One. I've got to say KRS.
Very nice. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like Ice Cube too.
I had a fellow I knew in Montreal who once battled KRS-One and won, and I tried to find the video. The video was on Facebook for the longest time. Funny guy, actually. He and I were like close friends for a long period of time, and then we had a falling out over some issues. But to see someone actually battle KRS-One, because I mean, KRS-One is a battle rapper, first and foremost. Just amazing stuff to watch. Just the dissection and how they kind of work their way through these things. Top 5 lists. Let's continue. Top 5 animals.
Wait, I gotta go back. Busta Rhymes is so good. I think he's rapped every word.
Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Not at all.
I couldn't leave him out.
Very good. He's had some interesting periods, actually. I own some Busta Rhymes, actually.
I mean, he hasn't been around for a while. I like his voice. I always liked him.
Oh, yeah.
Flip Mode.
Yes.
Some of those albums. Yeah, I like Busta Rhymes.
He's one of the few rappers that will actually he'll actually show where he samples from, which I think is particularly nice. Like, he has a lot of, like the prior track, he'll do intros where he shows where he takes the sample from for the next song.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, top 5 animals. I'll let you start with this.
Top 5 animals?
Yeah.
I saw some otters recently. They were doing just like they were supposed to, flipping around. I like a circus seal. Actually, just a seal. Okay. Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
Condor.
Mm-hmm.
House cat. That'll do.
Very good.
Is that 5? Is that 4?
It's otter, seal, tiger, condor, house cat. That looks otter, seal, tiger. Yes, that's 5. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Mine are crab-eating macaque or long-tailed macaque. That's a particular kind of monkey from Malaysia. Well, actually, it covers most of Southeast Asia. They are just the coolest monkeys ever to see. The Pallas cat, or Pallas's cat, depending on who you talk to, which is like a Russian cat that looks like it was created by Jim Henson. It's just a crazy-looking critter. The dingo. I have spent some quality time in the company of dingoes. They're amazing creatures. I was going to say house cat as well, but in particular, I like Persian domestic cats. I've owned one Persian in my life, and I'm going to own another Persian based on that one Persian. And finally, octopuses.
I almost said the octopuses, but they're material of nightmares, so I left them out. I didn't want to think about. You know what? I got to take 2 off my list. I just threw otter and seal out there, and they don't really mean anything to me. I'd like to retract those and put 2 others in, if I may.
Certainly, you may.
I love squirrels.
Oh yeah.
Lee Webb hates them. He shoots them. I hate him for that. And I love seagulls. You could take the condor off the list. The seagulls are so friggin' awesome, dude. I love when they attack people with French fries on the boardwalk.
So Lee Webb shoots squirrels? Does he use an air gun or something, or how does he do it?
Yeah, he's so simple. He hates when they eat stuff in his trees and eats like I don't even know what they're eating in his yard that he possibly needs. But he'll shoot at the squirrels. I'm like, why don't you just throw some peanuts in the yard or some scraps and they'll just eat that instead, because they're just millions of them here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. One time he made squirrels. He shot a squirrel and then he cooked it up, and then he forced me to eat it, and I ate it because I didn't want to be rude. And there was squirrel hairs all over it, dude. Tom, it was so disgusting. Oh, it was so disgusting. Had a pretty good gravy for it, but
yeah, no, squirrel gravy. I mean, yeah, you can't. But yeah, no, I do understand. Where we used to live in the UK was a place called Wilmslow, which may come up later this recording, in a future recording as well. The squirrels there were so unbelievably fat. The cats were fatter, so they wouldn't chase the squirrels. I once saw a squirrel with an entire piece of buttered toast in its mouth running along the fence beside me. I mean, they would just rob the trash, whatever was there. And this squirrel was using it almost like an air fin as it was running with this piece of toast in its mouth. Anyway, yeah. Fat squirrels.
Dude, our friend Lendon, he's a friend of me and Art's, and I'm sure you've probably met Lendon or heard of him. So, he's well, let's just say he should clean off his back porch, because he's got raccoons that come up to his back door, his sliding glass door, and they just grub down on his garbage, right? And they're so chill that when you go up, I put my face on the glass. I mean, I pushed my face up against the glass. I got down on my knees. I was like, let's see how often these things are here. How used to, like, people that this raccoon was just eating a pizza box and just looking at me. I mean, we're like a millimeter apart. I was laughing so bad. I was like, look at your backyard, man. It's like the great outdoors with the raccoons, you know, talking with subtitles.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway.
Raccoons, I've never experienced raccoons in real life, and I've always wanted to because they strike me. For a start, they have opposable, like, thumb claw things. So they have the manual dexterity of, like, primates on some level. And they just strike me as being really, really smart in a kind of conniving way, which I just want to see in the wild. There are various domesticated raccoon channels on YouTube, which I've found, and occasionally other people reference. And the people, particularly in the South, that like train raccoons, there's one guy where the raccoon comes and massages his back and things like that. Like they've trained him to do really strange things. And apparently they'll do it for food.
Yeah, they're just like big squirrels.
Okay, top 5 places you want to visit where you have never been.
In present time, or is this like a time traveling possibility?
Let's say present time.
I knew you were going to do that.
Okay, let's say time traveling. Okay, I'll throw time traveling back.
No, it's bachelor night. I'm gonna behave here.
Very good.
Top 5? That's so
top 5.
many. Everything looks so much better in pictures. That I haven't been to.
Mm-hmm. That you haven't been to.
Well, okay. My buddy just went to this place in Tennessee. Literally, he was telling me about this today. He just got back and he stumbled upon like a great antique place, and there was just millions of G.I. Joes there. So I'll take that place, and you better pick it up.
Okay. Top of my list is Cuba. I talk about Cuba so much, people I talk to about Cuba go and visit Cuba, which pisses me off more than anything. So Cuba is up there. I'd like to go to Japan. I'd like to go to Tokyo. I've never been to either Cuba nor Tokyo. There are various parts of Russia that interest me. I mean, St. Petersburg, I've had friends recently that have gone there. I'd like to go there. I've got a friend in Jordan, which it sounds just really cool. I mean, he has a farm where, like, John the Baptist baptized people. And it's really close to the Israeli border. Probably Israel as well. I've not been to Israel. I got a scholarship to go to Israel when I was 19. And that whole thing didn't work out. That's for a future recording of Attic Aficionados, ladies and gentlemen. It involved a woman, as these things did. And anyway, is that 5 yet? Cuba, Tokyo,
Russia.
Yeah, Jordan, Israel. That's my 5. I've done it.
I think Austria, Switzerland.
Oh yeah. Look, Austria is really, really beautiful. Austria's you've got to visit Austria. I loved my time in Austria. Switzerland's okay. Switzerland's it's a bit schizophrenic, right? You go in one part of it and they're speaking one language, you go another part of it, literally like 5 minutes in a different direction, they're speaking a completely different language. But yeah, look, it's beautiful. I mean, the lakes and all this kind of stuff, you know, Switzerland is just extraordinary. Yes.
How about Wales? I would pick Wales as well.
Wales is another beautiful place that I've been to only very recently. When we lived in the UK, we never went to Wales. We went there last year, and I've got to say Wales is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably it. You could pick somewhere else around here. Not like in the next town over. That's fine.
Okay. Top 5 places where you have been.
San Diego was cool. Of course, Vermont. Well, Ocean City, hands down. That's 3. Boy. Las Vegas Pizza in Westchester has like great Sicilian pizza. That's a place. I'm taking it. And, man. That's it.
So when I come and visit in 2018, where's the best sushi in your area?
Taikoku.
Good.
Taikoku is the best sushi in the area. There's other places that are like, we're a sushi house and this and that. And then there's some like real high-end ones in Philadelphia. I've been all of them. They are nothing compared to Taikoku.
Very good.
Yeah.
What makes a good sushi house for you? The quality of the fish? The diversity of the fish?
Yeah, the quality of fish. I mean, if they can't get the most like basic sushi right, then just forget it. And there is another place close by. No, forget it. Taikoku.
Very good. Yes. We have a local Italian restaurant that opened up a sushi house. I'm going to be interviewing my coworker Derek, who's also an aficionados listener. I can probably regale more about this. Anyway, this Italian restaurant that I wouldn't rate. Like, they dropped the steak on the floor and then tried to serve it to me the first time I went there. Anyway, they decided, because, hey, everyone's got a sushi place, that they were going to open up a sushi restaurant. Oh, my goodness. Train wreck. Dude. Absolute train wreck. The rice came to you hot. Like sushi, like assembled sushi with hot rice, so the fish smelled fishy. The whole thing was just really bad. Sushi can go wrong in so many different ways. Anyway, I was going to give you top 5 places where I have been.
Yeah.
For me, and this may or may not come up in film references, but there's a place in the UK called Wilmslow that I lived for 3.5 years. This is a place I want to go to die. I went back for a day, which was very much akin to the movie AI, the Kubrick movie AI, where the boy has one final day to live and he goes back with his mother and what have you. I had one day in Wilmslow. The night before, I was staying in a hotel and it had a spike that they used to hold the bed together. Basically a 3.5-inch spike had skewered my side and put like a 4-inch gash in it. So I'd slept absolutely no time previously. Had to move, kept my wife asleep, all this kind of stuff. They paid me £3,000, actually, based on this incident. So this is one of the few times where I've injured myself and actually got a payout after about 3 months. Anyway, Wilmslow for a day, it was just like a surreal thing. It was like 3.5 years of my life. So Wilmslow is definitely at the top. There are literally hundreds of places like Wilmslow in the UK, but just for me, Wilmslow was like that. I love Adelaide. You know, my wife doesn't particularly like Adelaide. But I like Adelaide, and I'd like to go back at some stage. I've got a bunch of family members, and the restaurants are great, lots of great walking. It's just a wonderful city. Then it gets more interesting. I can stand Sydney. I like certain areas of Sydney, and Sydney's like a drop-off point. My mother has a place in Sydney, so when I come to Australia, I always stay in Sydney for a few days. And I've started to own Sydney as a place. My hometown of Canberra, Australia, give or take. My wife absolutely loves Canberra. Not so much for me. I like Bonn in Germany. Bonn is very similar to Canberra, and if I was going to put in Berlin in Germany is absolutely, like if you have any interest in history and the Cold War and anything like that, gotta be Berlin. So.
Very nice.
Another question from Kenny Horn. Oh my goodness, I have so many of these. I'm going to have to let you start with this thing, because I'll just digress very rapidly. Worst vacation experiences.
Oh, dude. It's always the same place, and it's always awesome. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Worst vacation experiences. No, I always go to the same place. I love it.
So when you were a kid, you didn't try strange vacation locations?
No, never. It was always the same place. Never.
Wow.
Yeah, we always just like the same place, you know, but never.
Interesting.
I've never seen my parents get on an airplane. Ever. Now, my dad has in recent years, but no, never. I've never been to Disney World or Disneyland or anything like that, you know.
So it was always the Jersey Shores? That was always the location? Yeah,
sometimes. No, yeah, that's it. I went up to the mountains a couple of times, but the mountains here, just instead of going 2 hours east, go 2 hours north, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you better start and digress.
I'm going to have to kick this thing off.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, my father has been married 4 times. My mother was his first wife. His second wife... How does one even begin to tell this story? I've already been congratulated by certain listeners about being a good storyteller. I really hadn't planned how I was going to put this one out, but let me just put this thing out here. My wife met my father's second wife for the first time in 2009. My father's second wife lives in a penthouse looking out over Canberra. With the proceeds that she got from divorcing my father, she bought a penthouse. That's just an introduction to her. When my father and her were married, they would go on vacation and they would take me and my brothers with them. And I have never been... Step-parents are always difficult because they really don't give a fuck about you. This is actually going to come out somewhere later when we start talking about horror movies, if we get there. But I've just been on so many bad vacations with my father and my stepmother. And it was always vacations where, like, I would get sick somehow. When I was young, I'm about 6'3.5", 6'4". I did a lot of growing in 11 through to 13, 14. I had no energy, so I would just get sick at the drop of a hat in all circumstances. So we'd go typically in the middle of winter to like the beach, coastal areas, what have you. And I would always get some like whooping cough or some like congestion thing. And we were always in like these tiny quarters where if I even let out like a cough, my stepmother would just go off on me. And man, I just had hellish holidays. Just vacations from hell. And I remember, really, these are all repressed memories. It's probably best just to move past these. My wife would say that when we started dating, or actually it was when she moved to the UK, we had a bad vacation. We went to Euro Disney, because my wife is a Disney aficionado, and we stayed in this place, in a place called Mio. I didn't get the on-site hotels, another Disney-branded hotels. And this hotel was like in the middle. It's a medieval town. It's beautiful. But it had like wolves that would howl and things like that. And we were staying in a hotel which had been sold to me as a nice hotel. It was being completely renovated. The floor we were on, we were the only room in the floor. All the lights were blacked out. It was a pretty extreme trip. Thankfully, I was the one who had to speak confrontational French. My wife didn't have to deal with any of that. But yeah, that was probably I think my wife always talks about that as being the worst vacation she was ever on. And I was responsible for that because I planned out the vacation. I bought all the tickets. I tried to make it all nice and everything was just completely, but part of that is Euro Disney is really, it was then a way that the French could stick it to Americans. I'm not sure if it was before September 11th. So things hadn't gone really nasty. But it was pretty insane how bad the French people, like the people in Euro Disney, they were fine in the countryside. I mean, we went to like Gothic cathedrals and stuff, and the towns were wonderful. The French were really friendly. But within Euro Disney itself, or as it's now called Disneyland Paris, these people hated Americans. And what was particularly curious is that I speak French, right? But I speak French only at times of confrontation. I speak French only at times where I have to argue with someone. I can cuss in French and all this kind of stuff. So you ask me to speak French now, I'm useless. You put me in the middle of France with people, like, they would say, this restaurant is fully booked, and there was no one sitting down. There was no one eating in the restaurant. And then I'd have to argue in French to try and guess it. But yeah, I think that would be my wife's worst vacation ever. But oh my goodness. We will get to my father's third wife in this recording when we get to horror films, if we get there. Adam Sarsky asks, his questions are always good. What are your personal thoughts, I guess it's aimed at you, Brandon, on what makes a good arcade versus a horrible one?
Lighting and carpet. Yeah, you gotta have good lights. Mm-hmm. And you gotta have some good carpet. And it's gotta be dark, let the games light the place up.
Oh, interesting.
And no, you know what? The less big, bulky, sit-down driving crap you have, the better. Like, the more just stand-up 19-inch, it doesn't even have to be 19-inch, but you know what I mean? Like, the older, just upright arcade cabinets, the better. When you start putting in, like, Cruisin' World and paddle boat games and just this and that stuff sucks. It just takes up space. And the more quarter games, the better. Like, once it's like a dollar. If the machine takes $1 to play, just send it over to Dave and Buster's so it can collect dust. That crap sucks. Yeah, I feel very passionate about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Those old games just have cool marquees and they light up so cool. Definitely. And and you need bad change machines too. Ones that only take like the old dollars and old fives. So they can spit it out at you 15 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I've actually changed this specifically so we could talk about it next. But our listener Dave Smith, who literally we should get on the payroll as like a writer for Ad Aficionados, because Dave Smith is just he's now got regular segments that he wants us to run. So anyway, Dave Smith says, everyone loves Evil Dead, including myself. But do you have personal favorite B horror movies that crack you up that aren't as widely known as Evil Dead? I'll let you start.
No, I'm not huge into horror. I don't even know Evil Dead. I've seen like 10 seconds of one Evil Dead.
Ditto.
And
in fact, I thought about
remember
watching it last night so I could talk to this point, but I just thought, screw this.
I saw that. This is probably like 6 years ago. I walked in. I think Gunnar was watching it somewhere. And I was like, dude, what is this? And he's like, you've never seen Evil Dead? And I was like, no. And he didn't believe me. But I saw somebody shoot a bazooka at somebody, and it looked pretty funny. And but that's it. That's all I saw of it. Oh, I'm sure there's something. I just can't. Go ahead. How about you, Tom?
Okay. So I've got to recommend this film. It's not really. It is. I don't know. The Girl with All the Gifts is like British zombie movie stuff, and I like British zombie flicks within the genre. So I've got to recommend The Girl with All the Gifts. It's not, amazingly good, but for a Sunday afternoon with the spouse sitting on the couch, it's okay. My whole thing with the horror genre has just been completely ruined because in 2001, I lived at a place called the Leicester YMCA. And the Leicester YMCA is 3 months of my life that has physically scarred me. And after you have those kind of experiences, after you live in a truly horrific place, you start to realize that all the horror films are like really contrived. Like you've got to believe these characters, which are like two-dimensional, and the whole horror genre. I mean, I think about it with the Saw films and all these films, it's all just really contrived. If you've lived in a place that is absolutely terrifying, the horror genre just doesn't seem as good. Let me tell you a little bit about the Leicester YMCA, Brandon. Let me tell you about this place. My father's third wife. My father was getting married to his third wife. I arrived in the UK, wanted a place to stay probably for only about a month while I got myself on my feet, basically. Before they were married, my father's third wife kicked me out, and I went to the YMCA in Leicester. Leicester is about 2 hours north of London in the UK. It was basically like a refugee place before they deported the refugees. So I had a small room. On one side of me was this fellow and his wife, and I would work. I was actually working for Ericsson, the phone company at the time. So I had like a regular 9-to-5 job. But this guy would start beating his wife at about 9:30 in the evening and just keep on beating her until she stopped crying. And this went on, and the walls were paper thin. And on the other side, and this is why Tupac isn't in my top 5, I had this kid who would play Tupac at like 2 a.m. through to 4 a.m. and the walls were paper thin. So the guy who beat his wife was really terrifying. I thought eventually he's just going to break down the wall and start beating me or something. He went out for one night and he left his stereo on top blast. And I actually went downstairs. The YMCA was just horrible. It's just like this old, full of mold. And the fleas were so thick there that they actually ate through my big toe. So I have scars all over my feet and legs from the fleas at the Leicester YMCA. But I had so many flea bites, I could actually see the bone on my big toe. It was just like a horrific experience. I was there for 3 months, and actually I went back to Maryland to work with some people. This is when I lived in Rockville, Maryland for a short period of time, and enabled my legs to heal and this kind of stuff. The stories from the Leicester YMCA are so infamous that when I recorded them on another podcast, I had a listener mix them to music and put them online. I'm just going to share the video on the aficionados website, and I'll share it with you too, Brandon. And you can hear the stories of the Leicester YMCA. But once you've lived in a truly terrifying place where all this stuff is going on, horror films just don't have the same, impact. They're just not terrifying. But yeah, so the Leicester YMCA ruined me for horror films. Do you have any that you have thought of in the B-grade horror genre?
No, I've used to watch it. We used to just pick horrible ones and just watch them and laugh at different stuff. I'm sure I'm just totally forgetting something.
We may come back to this at a future recording.
Yeah, me and Lyndon were watching something. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not huge into the horror thing. I like more scary movies than horror. I don't even know. I always watch Sleepy Hollow. I love Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, my wife's a Sleepy Hollow fan. Yep.
Yeah, I like that. You got to have a good headless horseman to that dude is awesome.
Most certainly.
Yes.
Dave Smith continues. In your opinion, what year did movies, TV generally start to suck?
Lots of stuff sucked in the 90s.
Yeah, I think the 90s is definitely a turning point. I'm picking 89. I'm throwing it out there. Maybe 88. But yeah, definitely this is why my wife and I still watch Unsolved Mysteries. By the 90s, TV was a very curious place, worth exploring at your leisure. Do we have a specific date, though? Are you willing to say 89 as well, or do you have a better date?
No, I'll go more like 93. I'll go, a little bit more into the 90s.
You've got to watch the vintage Unsolved Mysteries then you'd realize how bad TV was in 90, 91, 92. This one I like, and I'm going to put this out to you first. Funny stories from your adolescence of being a punk kid and doing deviant shit.
Oh, it's just too many. It's just too many. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. Just punk kid stories? Oh, man. We used to skate through the neighborhood after playing hockey when rollerblades came out. And we would just go down this one hill on trash day and just smash everybody's trash cans out in the street. And, but we did so many other things. I don't even know where to begin.
I think we should file this one as we'll use in the future at relevant time. Yeah. Dave Smith continues. More specific. That's what we want. Dave Smith, if anyone is going to be more specific, it's going to be you. We want dates. We want times. We want circumstances. We will talk to our punk kid deviant shit associated with that. Dave Smith also asks, phrases and slang from the past that you miss or maybe don't miss so much, and phrases and slang from today that annoy you.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? No one says goober anymore. Used to call people goobers. I don't miss that at all. And now everyone just says, seriously? I can't stand that. And then they all say, what? I freaking can't stand that. I can't stand TV talk. When the TV makes up these slang things and then everybody just does it.
Associated with the show, yes.
And for a while, everyone said, that's so this or that's so that. Oh, please, just call me in a couple of years. I don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
Crap. Yeah. I don't know.
I occasionally find myself around millennials. In fact, it's interesting, actually, because now, for some of my podcasts, there are fan bases that are millennials. I guess for this podcast, maybe even some of the fan bases are millennials. And what fascinates me about millennials is that they have their own language, right? And some of the stuff I find kind of curious. Like, they have this notion of mansplaining, which now apparently they just add the word splaining to things. So, like toddler splaining or California splaining or all this kind of stuff.
Oh. Go ahead, keep going. No,
you interrupted with a sound effect that is worthy of changing the topic. Where do you want to take it?
I cannot stand when people say, like, they use the word hack for everything. Like, my shoelace broke. I tied it back together. Yo, man, I hacked my shoelace today. Or, yo, I turned this plastic cup upside down and poked a hole in the bottom. I hacked this plastic cup to hold pencils. Like, what are you talking about, dude? I cannot stand that. You'll be like, 10 life hacks that you can't live without. It's all great. You wrap rubber bands around your toes now so they stay warmer. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. You're not part of a profession that's attached to the word hack. I mean, I'm part of a profession that's attached to the word hack, like hackers, this kind of stuff.
Well, that's legitimate. That's like the real way to use it.
I think even that's abused. Yeah, that's abused. Let's move on from this highly contentious topic on athletic aficionados. Dave Smith's weekly, or at least whenever we choose to record, Dave Smith's movie recommendation of the week. What have you got for us this week, Brent?
Nothing. I didn't watch anything. I tried to watch the movie you sent me.
Okay, let me try this one. Firstly, I want to point out that this week I have realized that more movies that I would want to recommend on Attic Aficionados are no longer available. And that's, my view is, we had this conversation associated with DVDs. There are movies which I would historically recommend that no longer exist on any form of electronic mechanism, which just pisses me off more than anything. Because I've already gotten rid of those DVDs, damn it, I need to reacquire them if I want to watch the things again. Anyway. So based on this frustration, I went through a few movies that no longer exist. One that you will be able to get is Free Fire by Martin Scorsese. And it's not a highbrow film. It's kind of like Reservoir Dogs. It's got a bunch of stuff going on. It's not really like a super recommendation, but I watched it with my wife a couple of weeks ago, and it was not offensive. Lots of footage of people slowly bleeding to death, but then again I went and saw Dunkirk last week. Let's move on from that stinker. I'm also going to do Dave Smith's favourite books, or favourite book recommendations, I guess, or book recommendations of the week, or whenever we choose to record. I wanted to give one here because concise histories, I think, are really fascinating. And my favourite, there's a series called Osprey. It's actually a publishing series from the UK that make really, really thin histories, like 64-page histories. They're in a smaller format book, usually with a lot of pictures. I can typically read 3 to 6 of them in an evening. They're a great way to spend an evening. They're a little bit pricey unless you get them on the second-hand market through ABE Books. My favourite one from Osprey is Chinese Warlord Armies 1911 to 1930. These are literally like bands of guys, warlords, basically. They're basically gangs that controlled China. You think of China now as a coherent country. Back in 1911 through to 1930, and I have Chinese co-workers that have actually asked about this, China was ruled by warlords that went by names like Thunder Penis and, Boar's Nuts and things like this. I mean, they had really grotesque and curious names, and they ruled the country of China from 1911 to 1930. You will learn stuff that you never knew associated with relatively modern history of a relatively large country through this book. So, Philip Jowett, Jowett, is the author, and Stephen Walsh is the illustrator. Chinese Warlord Armies, 1911 to 1930. I would recommend this. It's from Osprey. It's in their Men of Arms series, and it's just fascinating crap that you would never know otherwise. What I also wanted to warn is that I purchased Shady Business, which I recommended last recording. The current edition of Shady Business is absolute crap. Amazon is just pushing these things out there to make money. It's printed with a really, really fine font that is blurry in some cases. I left a scathing Amazon review. I have a original edition copy, which unfortunately now you buy for like $50. So it's on the other extreme, and I've complained to Amazon, and hopefully, but right now, listeners, do not buy Shady Business because the new edition ones are just absolutely horrible. Are you ready for compliments time, Brandon?
Well, I'm going to give you a movie. It is the original Hunger Games, which just came out. It's the prequel to the Hunger Games.
Oh, okay.
It's called The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So if you have not seen The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I suggest watching it at least 3 times because it's so friggin' awesome. And it is basically the Hunger Games for dudes or anybody that actually likes movie. And if you make it through that and you enjoyed it, then go put on Jingle All the Way with Schwarzenegger and watch that 3 times. And then if you make it through that, you deserve twins. Watch it as much as you want. There's some Arnold movies for you.
The Running Man, I think, is an absolute classic. Anyway. Are we ready for compliments time? Have you prepped for compliments time? Or you just
no, but I'm ready. I have no idea. Let's go. I would like to pay you a compliment, Tom. I think your height, which I didn't even know before, but is wonderful, and it could see over any defensive line or offensive line, and I bet you'd be great at throwing touchdown passes or anything over other semi-tall people, and that is just an excellent and amazing thing to have.
Brandon, your ability to podcast and hold a newborn is without question the most amazing gift, and your ability to calm said newborn while podcasting live, this is superhero status from my perspective.
Tom, your amazing ability to go to so many places and know so many people and have so many interesting stories makes me feel like a listener during this podcast. And I thank you.
Brandon, on a similar vein, your knowledge of southeastern Pennsylvania arcades, untouchable.
I don't think that counts as a compliment.
And worthy of PhD status, and should be explored further in greater detail.
Well, Tom, I must say I am thoroughly impressed, and this is the greatest compliment you can get, and I double-checked with someone else as well on this, that your ability to grow Webby peppers is amazing. And Webby agrees as well, because it is not an easy thing.
Very good. Wow. Gosh, I'm humbled by such compliments. I have to congratulate you on recommending Boardwalk Empires and the Tornadoes to me. Both these things, well, Boardwalk Empires to a lesser extent, but it was just a huge amount of time that I took away from my general day-to-day life. Thank you for introducing me to these two things.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked them.
And so ends compliments time for another 3 to 5 recordings. So, as we are for time, shall we go through my topics or your topics first?
Go through yours.
Okay. Favorite recipes.
Ooh, pie crust. Don't go out and buy pie crust.
Definitely not.
It is like the easiest thing to do. It's flour, water, and butter. And don't use margarine or oil or any of that crap. It's so easy. It tastes better. And read the ingredients in a pre-made pie crust. You're going to, you might as well just smoke some, I don't even know. Just don't eat that crap. It's horrible for you.
Yes. Although I'm still curious what you'd smoke. But anyway, carbonara. Carbonara for me. I just love carbonara. I can't get enough carbonara. Carbonara is the sauce that I will make for pasta from scratch. My wife's not big in carbonara, so it's usually a secret sauce or something that I make when she's away. But it's so simple. I mean, the only trick is how much you need to heat the carbonara sauce to start off with. But basically, and I do a variety of different carbonaras depending on how I'm feeling. I mean, sometimes I will just do eggs, butter, and a little cheese, depending on what kind of cream I have, or whether I just have milk and a little bit of milk, but typically just eggs, butter, and a little bit of cheese and some cream if I have it. And sometimes, if I've got a lot of pasta and just one egg and a little bit of ingredients, I won't even heat the sauce first. I'll just add it all together and beat it through the pasta. And then you have the options of what you can do with the additional ingredient. And to be a purist, you have to use ham of some description. But I've done it different ways. I've done it with shiitake mushrooms, variety of different kinds of mushrooms, particularly like really woody tasting mushrooms. Absolutely delicious. And sometimes even I've done a breakfast carbonara, which you do with particular kinds of delectable bacon. I'll leave it.
Oh, that sounds, that's making me hungry. I snuck a muffin during the podcast.
What kind of muffin?
Blueberry and banana.
Ooh, interesting combination.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I gotta say macaroons. Man, they're so easy to make. You can find a recipe anywhere, but you don't even really have to, you don't even need a blender or anything. You just throw some shredded coconut in a bowl with a little bit of flour and sweetened condensed milk, and then you scoop those suckers out right onto a tray, put them in the oven. It's like, you can have macaroons so fast, man. Oh, dude, I love macaroons.
Macaroons and macarons. So my friend in Australia is like the macaron, which is, typically like, I don't even know what it's like. It's a puffed batter with like some cream filling in the center. This is macaroons, but people pronounce them differently. And macarons, anyway, I'm not going to talk about macarons in this recording because it was just like a long period of time. He's absolutely obsessed with these things though. Australia, McDonald's started serving macarons in Australia. I mean, that's how like crazy the macaron game was in Australia, but we'll just move on from that because you weren't talking about that. Let's move on from favorite recipes. I'd like to do favorite recipes more regularly, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't talk about food enough in this podcast. I mean, that's just my general feeling. Anyway, best advice ever given, best advice ever received.
I don't think I've given any good advice. Best advice ever received? Maybe, no, dude.
Do you want me to take this?
Yeah, you better go.
Okay, the best advice I've ever given, I've given this to a number of people, but I gave it to your buddy Art in particular, was this is a bloody expensive part of the US to live, and if you're coming here, you've got to demand a salary that will make you look away in shame, wince, anywhere else in the US, but when you're coming to this part of the US, you've got to ask for that salary, because otherwise you won't be able to live, you won't be able to support your family, and you're back in Westchester faster than you think. And I give this advice periodically to people. My wife had a friend, a quilting buddy, who came out from Texas. They lasted here 3 months. They thought, oh, wow, this is amazing money. Not in the San Francisco Bay Area, it isn't. Anyway, so that's the best advice I've ever given. And actually, that advice facilitated this very podcast recording. Best advice I've ever received, Patience. My grandfather instilled in me, even as a really young kid, that sometimes you just have to wait for stuff to happen. Like, it's hard when you're young. But as you get older, sometimes you realize that time is actually your friend. It's a very curious piece of advice, but it's certainly the best advice I've ever received.
Yeah, I like, my mom would always say grass is greener on the other side. I always like that. That's probably why I never go anywhere else.
Yes, that's the advice you've lived your life by, right?
Oh, everything looks better in pictures. Just look at a book and you don't even have to leave your property.
Yes. National Geographic has ruined me with the US. As a kid, I used to read National Geographic. When I went to the Grand Canyon, seen it before. It's better in the magazine. Lake Tahoe, seen it before. It's better in the magazine. Yosemite National Park, seen it before. Better in the magazine. So I do understand that mentality, and really the US has been ruined to me thanks to National Geographic. Here's something only because it enables funny stories to be told. Chance meetings with famous actors or actresses. Do you have any of these?
No, no.
So I have two that I reflect upon. But yeah. Maybe I'll say mine and then you can think a bit more. Or maybe, do you have something?
Yeah. No, I don't. I'm trying to think of it. No, I don't think
okay. When I was in New York, I spent a bit of time in New York in 2000. The actress Chloe Sevigny, who was in Kids, which is a movie that you can't get anymore. I couldn't believe it when I was looking. I was going to recommend Kids this week. Kids you can't get anymore. Anyway, Chloe Sevigny was cycling past me, and I had like a fifth of a second where I was debating just falling down on the street, because I could do that quite comfortably and do it quite normally just when I'm walking along without even trying. Let Chloe Sevigny ride into me, but didn't do it. The second one, and this is another film that you can't get on streaming anymore, kids. I don't even know how I should explain this. Let me start by saying, before the internet, this is really curious to say, there's this film called Sirens, which is an Australian film nominally about an artist whose name escapes me when I record Attic Aficionados. Anyway, it's basically a movie which is an excuse for vast quantities of nudity. This might seem strange to our listeners, but imagine that prior to the internet, film was actually a way that nudity was transmitted to people. Anyway, I was a kid growing up in Australia, and I would get off the bus, and the area that I was in, there were two predominantly, there was a girls' private school and a boys' private school. I didn't attend either of them. I went to public school, I got off the bus, I had holes in my clothes. And I got off the bus at the girls' school and would walk through a park and then walk to the family home. And these girls would throw their sandwiches at me. I'd get off the bus and they'd literally throw their sandwiches at me because I was the poor public school kid getting off the bus. And I started catching the sandwiches and eating them. They were actually really good sandwiches.
What kind were they?
Oh my goodness. They had smoked imported cheeses and strange meats and stuff. They were delicious sandwiches. So then they started rubbing the sandwiches in the dirt and then throwing them at me.
Oh.
Anyway, a couple of years later, I want to say a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years later, the main instigator, a woman by the name of Kate Fisher, who's changed her name for obvious reasons, appeared in the movie Sirens. And that was the ultimate reverse revenge, because she has had a tortured life since. I mean, obviously from childhood bully, sandwich thrower, dirt-rubbing sandwich thrower. But yeah, when she appeared in Sirens, I thought, this is a full stop. The end of this childhood experience. Yeah.
Okay, I got one.
Okay.
I met Vernon Wells. He's Australian, isn't he?
Maybe. I don't know.
He's definitely he's in Commando with Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
He's Bennett. And I was at a Comic-Con and he was there. And so I went up and started talking to him. He was awesome, man. But yeah, I can't remember too many. I mean, there's a lot of wrestlers at those things that I met that I always watched, but Bennett takes the cake.
Interesting. So he's the little nerdy guy in Commando? Which one is he?
No, he's like the main guy that Schwarzenegger fights. He's the main the main tough
Scottish. Guy. I'm not sure if he's Australian. I thought he was Scottish. Maybe is he from South Africa? Anyway, I'll find out.
Oh, maybe yeah.
Yeah. If you could be any other profession, what would you be?
Human? Do I have to be a person?
I guess you could be a circus seal or a lion, or let's keep it with people for the start, and then if you want to go into animals, we'll go into animals.
Any other profession?
Mm-hmm.
Any profession?
Any profession.
Yeah, all right. I know what I would. I would be second in, no, like third or fourth in charge of picking the action figures to come out. Ooh. I would be testing like action figures and like being like, okay, this one sucks. You got to do this with this one. So something along those lines.
Yeah. I'd be a DJ, I think. This has actually literally come to me only in 3 seconds. But when I lived in Vegas, this DJ AM, who eventually OD'd on heroin, his billboards were all over Vegas, and this guy looks like a nerd. This guy looks like a super nerd. I mean, he's dead now, but he looked like a super nerd at the time. And I thought, if this guy, and I'd listened to his stuff, he was dating, Nicole Richie or something like that. And I just thought, if these nerds are now sex symbols as DJs, I've got the skills on the turntable. What the fuck am I doing with my life? What the fuck am I doing? But no, I never got back into it. And I just thought to myself, yeah, I would be a DJ, and this is certainly a profession that I think, if I could live my life again, if I could influence the children of others, it would be a DJ, because the techniques that AM did, the whole basic DJing techniques, just sold to nightclubs. Anyway, let's move on first. Let's get into your topics. Have you ever made Easter egg sugar string balloon?
Oh, did you ever make these?
I'm not sure what they are. Describe them and I'll tell you.
All right, you take a balloon and blow that sucker up really big, mm-hmm. like it's almost gonna pop. It's gonna be really hard, mm-hmm. And then you take a bowl of water and mix a bunch of sugar in. Just mix it, but you got to mix it really good. I mean, mix it, mm-hmm. and then get kite string and soak it. Don't unwind it. Just soak the whole spool of it in there. And oh no, wait, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Don't put the string in the water.
Okay.
What am I thinking? You got to wrap the string around the balloon all over. Wrap a ton of it, and then you take the balloon and you dunk it in. You have to have a big bowl of the sugar water. Get it nice and coated, and then you take it and you put it somewhere like on top of your refrigerator or something, somewhere real dry, and let it dry. Let it get hard. It'll take like a week to really get totally hard, and then you pop the balloon and you got this like shell, and then you like cut a hole in it and you put some Easter egg decorations on it or whatever. Or you could just take this thing and do whatever you want with it. But they're pretty cool. If it pops on you, like they'll pop sometimes when you're dipping it in. It's such a mess. But anyway.
Alas. No, I've never made those, but they sound fascinating. I'll pass it on to Mrs. Barbalet because she loves Easter-related decorating techniques, and I think this is one that she could adopt.
Very good. Very, very good.
You ask, what animal would you be? Should I answer first?
Yeah.
If I could be an animal, I would be one of my pet cats, because they live the life, damn it. I live my life for my cats. They lie around, they get fatter, they meow occasionally. If I'm really lucky, they'll curl up next to me while I'm asleep so my wife could take humorous photos. But most of the time, they are just kicking it. And what a life.
Yeah.
What animal would you be?
Probably. Well, no, I've been on the ground so long, I got to go with some sort of hawk. Like a red-tailed hawk. Yes. Yeah, something along those lines. Something with some talons and a beak. I mean, I like seagulls and all, but
yeah.
I'd like to check out flying around.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. That would be cool. Yeah. What animal would you grant the power of speech?
Ooh. I think a giraffe.
Yeah, they've got to have a really interesting story behind them.
How about you?
We've got a feral cat. We've had this feral cat for the longest time. And when he escapes, and he escapes at least once a week, sometimes he'll be gone for 3 days. And actually, are you familiar with nextdoor.com? That's like a community website where you have actual communities. We have just digital ones over here. But when he escaped, when we first moved into the house, I wasn't even on Nextdoor. And people posted a photo essay of our cat living large in the neighborhood. So yeah, this cat has got a story to tell. I'm just fascinated by how this cat can come back. In fact, we've got video footage of him escaping the last time, And basically he goes to the neighborhood junkyard. I'm sure he, like, fights squirrels and a bunch of other stuff, and then he comes back. I think you'd have a story to tell.
Yeah.
Is there an easy way? Sorry, do you have one more? Sorry.
No, I was going to say I've never been on nextdoor.com.
It's not worth it. If you've got a real community that has, like, as you've described, like real, junkyard sales and things like that. Not junkyard. What am I saying? Real, I don't know.
Yes.
Sales. And, if you've got a community where the neighbors actually talk to each other, and our community, we don't talk to each other as neighbors. In fact, I've got some Vietnamese neighbors that have just moved in next door. They don't speak English, and I have a better relationship with them than any of my English-speaking neighbours. They smile and wave, and I smile and wave back. I told them when they moved in, if you leave shoes outside, they will be stolen. The homeless people will come around and take your shoes. And from that one piece of advice, we are best buds. Me and all of them. Anyway. Is there an easy way to explain which Star Wars movie you're talking about, especially when the person you're talking to is only mildly familiar? This is the problem of my life, Brandon. You've condensed it in one attic aficionado.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, there isn't. Is there? Do you know a way to say it?
This is my life. Half my experiences existed in another country at another time that no longer exists. Even people that live in that country don't understand. So it's like a good portion of my life exists in a way that I can't explain to anyone. Like, my wife gets little snippets of it because she meets people like my father's second wife, my stepmother. But really, you can't see the full trajectory. And when I talk, like, what you hear on Attic Aficionados, ladies and gentlemen, is a small portion of my life. The rest of my life is absolutely batshit crazy. And my wife, we've been married for 15 and a half, nearly 16 years, known her for 17 plus years, has heard almost every story I have to tell. And yet, mysteriously, it makes absolutely no coherent sense to her until she goes to various parts of Australia and has various experiences and these kind of things. My whole life is talking about a movie that no one else has watched but me. I get this problem all the time. Let's move on to your next question. Why do computers slow down? This is a fascinating question. Do you want me to give it to you, or do you have some theories?
No. I want to hear what you got to say.
Computers, if you think of computers purely about the technology, you don't understand. The technology obviously gets better and things get better. The main thing about computers, which is Apple and Microsoft and all these companies, is about fashion. Computers are about fashion just as much as they are about technology. So when you think of user interfaces, when you think of the way in which you use computers and the colors and all this kind of stuff, that's been designed by someone. That's not technology. That's not raw technology. That's some designer creating something which becomes part of fashion, which people get used to. It's a bit like, why do fashions from the 1980s look out of date? They look out of date because we've experienced them and we've moved on, and there have been other newer fashions that we've learnt about. The actual technology, and this is something I love doing. When I was in Australia, I couldn't get access to the newest computers. I would take old computers and I would use them with new user interfaces to get them looking like they were new computers, which is a really easy technique to do. So my perspective is computers slowed down, not just because of the actual hardware slowing down, but because they look unfashionable and out of date. And I mean, yes, there is a clunkiness factor as well, which is just associated with software is like a story that never ends. They start writing it, they continue writing it, it gets more and more complicated, gets more and more volume, requires more and more processing. Working in technology, rarely do you have the opportunity to make things simpler. You just constantly have to add new stuff, and you do get to refine at certain times, you do get to rewrite some things, but basically two things, fashion and this long story that is software just getting more and more complicated. Does that make sense, Brandon?
Yeah, it does, but now bear with me. Like, let's say I take, let's just say I take a MacBook, from, let's say 2006, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it into, let's say it's 2006, I get it, and it feels really fast. And by fast, I just mean, you open any program and you play anything. You don't even have to be online, You open iTunes, you open iMovie, whatever. And then now 10 years go by and I have, let's say whatever I've run, whatever updates or whatever, and it's slow again. So I reformat the hard drive and I put the original system disk in and start it as if it was 2006 again. I don't update. I don't go online or anything. Why is it slower?
Because your perception of computing has changed.
Is that what it is? It just feels.
My view
It
is
was that slow all the time.
What I used to do in Australia was I wouldn't get new computers. So I'd only use old computers. So I would use the crap out of old computers and basically find ways of making them look better and making the processing work faster through a variety of different factors. It's the perception of new computers where you could do more stuff. Part of it is fashion. Our brains are really tailored to fashion. But part of it is also that if you use a new, faster computer that's doing 15 different things, and this whole notion of software as a story is something I like to describe to people because that's what it is. It's adding new things, basically, continuously, and just relying on the fact that the computer's getting faster to take a lot of the stuff in. Now, true, there's different analysis, particularly associated with how to improve, which is the whole... You probably know this implicitly, but I'll say it explicitly. When a game console first comes out, the stuff that's written for it is not as good as the stuff that's written after 2 years. Like, actually writing software takes some degree of experimentation and reflection, which means that when a console first comes out, the games that come out for it, unless they've worked really heavily with the people that are actually making the console, which is more the story now, they're always going to be a little bit slower and more clunky than the games that come out a year later because they've had better time to optimize. But yeah, it's a multifaceted thing, but in general, it's associated with actual speed, perception, fashion, and the software thing, which continues to grow.
Does the hardware break down?
Not typically. I mean, some things do. So I've got a bunch of old computers where the disk drives don't work anymore. The hard disks might nominally become slower. There are various things which, mechanically might become a little bit more clunky, but most of the computers that I maintain don't have mechanical hard disks anymore. They use, RAM disks and this kind of stuff. And really, actually, a lot of it is perception. So I've got a bunch of software that I've written, historically. I mean, Noble Ape I've written for, since 96. And I have old computers that I take back and run Noble Ape on periodically. I've got the Schmuck West games we talked about. I've got a bunch of games, and from my perception, they aren't running any slower, given exactly the same hardware constraints. They're running exactly the same speed. But when I run them on faster computers, they look a damn sight faster, and I can put in different tweaks and techniques to, make them run differently. So.
Okay. Oh,
I
that's
don't think
awesome.
there's anything mechanical that's actually, meaningfully slowing down.
Yeah, I didn't think there was either. That's why I was like, well, why does it seem so slow?
Perception.
Yeah, that's cool.
Is there an easy way to disable modern car functions such as annoying beeps when you lock your doors or the auto lock feature? Oh, Brandon, this again. So much to say about this topic. Get in there first.
I can't stand it. Every time you get out of the car somewhere, you just hear 50 car horns going. Bam, 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 bam. I'm like, I get it. Just freaking lock it with your hand before you get out. And do you really have anything that people need in there?
We, as a civilization, are getting more noisy, more beeping, more annoying. I mean, it's like, when you go into fast food restaurants, originally they had these noises, and I thought, well, this is insane. Now it's part of everyday life. And the worst part about it is, through the work that I do, I have to be a party to this constant... When I talk about a hunting lodge in not Pennsylvania, but maybe there are hunting lodges in Pennsylvania as well. When I talk about one in West Virginia, it's to get away from this noise stuff, which is continuous around me. My wife and I stayed at a golf club, a deserted golf club, a couple of years ago, and there was no sound in that place. It was amazing. It was pitch black, and there were no one... 15, 20 miles before the next human. It was a dream. That is my dream for the future.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's only getting worse. It's only getting worse. It's not getting better. They're adding more beeps and more clicks and more noises to everything. And we just gotta live with it in some, we're McDonald's workers in the 1980s.
That, I cannot stand the, I've never owned a new car, by the way. But if I went in to buy a new car, I would be like, there's no way I'm buying a car with that auto lock crap. You get out of the car, you shut the door, you walk away, you come back. I'm like, why are you locking? I didn't tell you to lock. It's so annoying.
The problem is that these things are, in this country, and really in any country, you live in Europe or this kind of stuff, you're getting every country's legislative requirements. In this country, every state's legislative requirements put into a car. So some person in North Dakota, some local council member has mandated some crazy shit that then has to go into every car in this country. It's only getting worse. It's not getting better. There's no notion. spam calls while we're on this topic.
This is awesome.
Spam calls are just they don't stop. I've got a cell phone, which is my work cell phone, which I've got to keep on in case Netflix blows up. It could happen, and I'll be called, believe me. And some timeshare, the Delgados, whoever these fuckers ever were, owned this phone 5.5 years ago with their timeshare. I still get 3 calls a week about their timeshare. My favourite, however, when we bought our house in Las Vegas, the number we inherited, the previous people were delinquent on their Bank of America mortgage. We had a mortgage with Bank of America. No, we don't. No, it's some other company now. Anyway, we get these delinquent mortgage calls from Bank of America. And I said, I'm a Bank of America customer. You have my telephone number. You know, I'm paid up on my mortgage. I have accounts with you. I'm putting money through you. Why are you still phone harassing me? The guy told me, and I remember his name. His name was Damien. He told me to change my telephone number. And when I got that friendly call from Bank of America saying, can you please rate your previous call with Damien? I rated the hell out of that call. Anyway, they just never stop.
Oh, I used to get one. You'd pick up the phone and it would be a boat horn. Have you ever got that?
Yeah.
This is the captain calling. Yeah. Yeah. You know, there is a feature on the iPhone though that you can block any call that's not in your contacts.
Yes, I block about 85 a year in that, just from these, but they call from random numbers. I actually put together, back in the mid-2000s, I had a blog that was read by a very small number of people, but the people that would come to my blog, because I'd post every time I get one of these calls, and I had, stories of people that were, what was the one? There was one company where the guy was based out of Canada, and he gave money to a school at Oxford University, one of the colleges at Oxford University. This guy had made money through phone scams, and he'd given a huge chunk of cash so he could be one of, the dignified custodians of Oxford University in the UK. I created a knowledge base associated with this guy where the Canadian Mounted Police used my website as a reference to bring this guy down. Spam calls. Anyway. Last of the questions for this evening. And then you can go and have another muffin, Brenda. Your absolute number one favourite smell.
Oh. Number one? I like stinkor.
You wrote it. Continue.
You're not supposed to blow my cover. I like stinkor from He-Man. He smells so good. He's supposed to smell bad, but he smells good. He smells like some alternate version of Drakkar. He smells pretty good. Yeah. I think I like that. And I like cinnamon smells pretty good when it's bacon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that smells pretty good. How about you, Thomas?
I think it's called a yellow box eucalypt. It's a very particular kind of eucalypt tree. Which
You're
I really
so Australian.
Bring over here.
Okay, go ahead. Yellow box.
Eucalypt. Let me find another smell. All the other smells I couldn't put out in publicly accessible podcast form, but I'm more than willing to share other smells with you when finally we eventually meet. But no, yellow box eucalypt, definitely. And my grandfather's box that has his soldering iron and stuff, when I imported it to this country, I didn't really fill it with yellow box flowers. The yellow box flowers would drift into my grandfather's workshop. And so when I imported the soldering iron, it had a bunch of yellow box flowers. So every, 2 years or so, I just open it up and I sniff really big.
Yeah, I like the smell of Christmas trees.
Yeah.
Like when you bring them in the house, like any of that pine. Although outside they don't really do anything for me.
I like the smell of hard water, preferably in a toilet, and hardwood floors. And this is another smell that I found only very recently. One of our listeners, actually, I met up with him at his folks' place in a place called, I think it was Menlo Park. And his parents had hardwood floors. And I went into the restroom and I could smell the hard water in the toilet with the hardwood floors. And that, again, brought me back to my grandparents' house. But it's so hard to get smells from my childhood in this country. It's really, really difficult. So most of the time I'm just smelling pollutants and carcinogens and all the usual stuff.
Man, there's a bookstore here. If you come by, I'm going to take you. It is in this old wooden place, man. It is like 1,000,000 years old. I'm just going to let you get in there and just start sniffing away.
Oh, my goodness. That's another thing. But that's not a unique smell. That is like so many different smells. I'm like a police dog in like a police, whatever they confiscated customs room, and then I'm in a bookstore. Oh man. All possible areas. It has been a pleasure as always, Brandon. Let us
likewise
recombine. Let us find new questions. Let's find new directions. Let's explore, preferably next week or whenever we get together again. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Yeah, take care, Tom. See ya.